bad omen haunting my house. I must have been 7 to 8 years when I had my first, and probably the only encounter with supernatural. My father got transferred to Dehradun from Almora when I was 7 to 8. We moved to a rented place. Our landlords seemed sweet and helpful at first, but they were not like that at all. After a week or so, my mother started feeling uncomfortable in the house. Things would fly off the shelf on their own. Once a glass broke on my mom's hand and it made a cut as if someone deliberately cut my mom's hand. Our landlord's wife used to talk nicely with my dad, saying stuff like our family is the best, but would go tell my mom that we need to leave as we are not welcomed right after my dad would leave for work. She was trying to drive a wedge between my mom and my dad. Things started to go a bit south, but we also did our research. Then the entire horrific story came out, including black magic. Before us, there was a couple that used to live in the same house. The landlords would play the same game with them like they played with my dad and mom. This led to a huge fight between the couple, and the wife literally killed herself by burning herself alive. The situation worsened as the landlord's wife used to do black magic. She used black magic to control the guy and brainwashing the man into not believing his own wife. It has been said that the husband was so brainwashed that he did nothing to save his wife and watched her burn alive right in front of him. When we came in, we knew nothing and moved in. After my mom experiencing things, I started seeing things as well. I used to see a Batman action figure everywhere at night. Even on my bed when I didn't even have any action figure back then. I was a car kid always. Once I saw a giant doll in front of my cabinet. I was like 5-6 feet tall. It was there whole night. It was as if something wanted us out of the house. I don't know whether it was the women who died or because of black magic we were seeing things, but was a very strong and obvious presence. I am 30 now, but we still sometimes visit Dehradun, and that house is now empty. Even the landlords have sold off the place and went elsewhere. No new renter was able to live there for more than 2 months. We lived there for not more than 4 months. This happened when I was probably 4 years old. Never gave it much thought until I got older and more info came to light. I was in my bed and woke up, not sure if from the night or was napping. But I see a baby in the middle of my floor, so I get out of bed and start playing with it. My mother comes in and asks what I'm doing, etc., and I tell her playing with the baby. Of course she doesn't see it, and then starts to become a little angry with me the more I insisted. She tells me to get into bed, and then I see the baby fly up and over her and into the ceiling like a golden light almost, and she gets angry when I tell her this. Some night later, not sure same day or days later, I'm in bed and wake up to my parents talking, and I remember my father saying something like, "You know kids, they make things up." And my mother says, "But he's never done that before, why now? I'm scared." About 16 years later, my mother tells me she had an abortion when I was around that age. I do recall her being sick in the mornings and then her going to the doctor. I definitely recall asking if she feels better, and she didn't act normal. Kind of sad. Anyway, putting all of this together, possible I saw this baby around the time she had the abortion, and that's why she reacted so strongly to me and then scared when telling my father about it. I always sort of brushed it off, telling myself I must have dreamt it or whatever. But never forgot about it, and was never scared of it. With all the other missing pieces coming together, I do think it was real. It was the first thing that came to my mind when she admitted the abortion, and it all fit right then. Haven't had any experiences since, just the normal chill up your spine. Some moments out of nowhere, but that could be anything. Did have a possible night terror a little over a year ago. Woke up and was a whitish woman's face that kind of changed and then settled and gave me a sly smile. I finally was able to speak and say, "Who are you? Go away." Very scared, and she disappeared. Not sure if real or dream paralysis, so not putting much stock in that, but felt real. Edit. Also recall the morning of my first communion. I woke up and was just laying in bed or whatever, and then kind of heard a disembodied voice say my name. Then moments later hear my mother say my name because she could hear I was awake. The disembodied voice didn't sound like her, and I was awake for a bit, not like I just woke up. But still, not something I put too much stock into. As a kid, I've always been fascinated by ghost stories, paranormal thrillers, and spooky experiences from family or friends. I used to sometimes wonder what it would be like to encounter a real ghost or something spooky. This is a real-life incident that happened when I was about 10 to 11 years old. I was from Bombay, where I had gone to visit my aunt. My dad picked me up from the railway station in Bangalore. It was about 10 p.m. and raining heavily. We waited for the rain to subside and started to head home in our old scooter. Dad casually checking with me about my vacation, and all of a sudden the scooter stopped. Dad got off the scooter and tried kickstarting it, but to no avail. I stood there with my backpack, partially drenched and hungry. I looked around while my dad was trying his best to revive the engine and get it running. It had probably water inside it due to the rain. The whole locality wore a creepy and eerie look, with not a soul to be seen far and wide along the roads. Much later in the observation, I saw that this was the road flanked by cemeteries on either side. A chill ran down my spine. As much as I was anticipating such a day, I was not prepared to have any kind of encounter. I quietly tugged my dad's shirt and helped him push along the road until we find some help. Remember, it is pitch dark, raining and no one in sight. We pushed along the end of the road and arrived at what seemed like a junction with a long and wide road ahead of us. We stopped to catch our breath and decided to wait out. We had crossed the cemetery patch by now, anxious face with sweat. I was mentally preparing to encounter a ghost and act all brave and bold in the eventuality. Suddenly, my crazy thoughts were interrupted by a young man on a scooter who stooped in front of us to ask if we needed help. I couldn't recollect where he came from. The road was empty, and there is no way I could have missed a single scooter approaching us. He seemed very friendly. He unclogged the silencer and kick-started the scooter. The engine was resuscitated back to life with just a single kick. I was amazed. The young man's face was clear, mostly because it was a dimly lit junction. My father offered him some money as a token of gratitude, and he simply smiled and said, "No, thank you, just get home safe with your kid." He ruffled my hair and smiled at me. Dad helped me pick up my backpack and we sat on the scooter, and barely that second, the man who helped us was nowhere to be seen. It was bizarre, as this is a 100-foot road so long and wide and with no turns or crossroads. There is no way this man could have flown at 140 kilometers per hour in a scooter to the end of the road. Dad gasped in surprise, and I was fixated on the road to see nobody. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. My dad could see that I was overshadowed by fear, and I could tell that he was terrified too. We left the spot swiftly and continued our journey home without a word. Both of us were baffled and confused at our encounter. Was it a friendly ghost who came to save us? Or a good Samaritan with impeccable MotoGP skills on a 50 cubic centimeters scooter? Till today, these questions haunt us. Neither logic nor science could explain his disappearance that night. This is another story from my mom, though this time it's from when she was a teen. When my mom was around 15, she had lived in Germany for a few years. Her and her parents lived in a 3-story old brick house, though this was a rental house which they were only going to be living in for a small amount of time. One night when my mother went to bed, she tossed and turned, unable to go to sleep for some reason. She didn't know why, but she had a horrible gut feeling. She finally decided to sit up in her bed, knowing that something was definitely wrong, though before she decides to go to her parents' room, she sees a figure standing outside her window. The outline of a man, with the only thing that can be properly made out was the fact that this man had red eyes. My mother wanted to scream for a second, but then something hit her. Her room was on the 3rd floor of the house. There was no way anyone could be standing outside her window unless they had gotten a ladder and climbed it. But the noise surely would have woken the whole house. If not, at least she would have noticed. Something in my mother told her not to get up and just to lay back down and pretend to be asleep, as if she didn't see anything. As much as she wanted to go running to her parents' bedroom, something deep down was sending off alarms telling her not to. The whole night my mom laid in her bed, unable to get up, but unable to fall asleep due to pure fear overtaking her. She waited until the sun was shining before she looked back over. The man was no longer there. She sighed in relief, though she was still unable to go back to sleep, so she got up and walked to her parents' bedroom, where she woke them both up and told them what happened. My grandfather, her dad, walked to my mom's room, though him and my grandmother didn't really believe my mom, thinking she was just having a bad dream or something. He told her it was nothing and that no one could have been at her window since they were so far up from the ground. My mom begged my grandparents to believe her, saying she wasn't able to sleep all night nor get up to tell the two of them, though they still didn't believe her. 2 weeks goes by and my mother had only seen the man at her window 5 other times, though she felt like there was being constantly watched in the neighborhood. Telling her parents, though each time they didn't believe her, saying she was just imagining it. Then whenever my grandparents were visiting with a next-door neighbor, my mother's so-called nightmares were brought up by my grandparents to the lady. The lady went pale as a ghost the moment my grandfather described the man my mother had described to them time and time before in the last week. The lady said it was a spirit that had been around for decades, just standing outside of young girls' rooms watching them. No one knew why or when the first time the spirit had arrived, but when it did, it never left. Most of the neighbors believed it to be an evil spirit who would prey on the young girls, and once it had its eyes on its next victim, the girl would go crazy, seeing the man everywhere they go in the neighborhood. Though it was just a rumor, this was enough to make my grandparents freak out and move out of the rental as quickly as they could, which luckily was extremely quick since they just moved in and most of the boxes hadn't even been unpacked yet. This had to be one of the more creepy stories New York mom had told me. Though many people wouldn't see it as too bad, my mom was terrified. Even when telling the story, which she won't do often, you can tell she gets freaked out occasionally. This is just another one of the more memorable stories my mom told me. Since my last one, The Man in My Nursery, seemed to be a hit, I decided to share this one too. Hopefully you guys like the story.